We continue our journey through Mark's Gospel with the closing section of Jesus' ministry in Galilee, chapters 9 and 10. With this section, we are brought up to the gates of Jerusalem, and the Passion narrative will begin in earnest. Some scholars have even argued that Mark's Gospel is a Passion narrative with this introductory material tacked onto it. We shall see what we think when we get there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This section focuses on two issues. One about greatness and how the disciples rank as a group or individually. And two, what is the place of the law now? In light of the good news of Jesus Christ, how does one read the law? How does the gospel, the good news, influence how the law is to be interpreted? These two issues are bracketed then by two miracle stories. A healing of a boy with an unclean spirit on the one end, and a blind beggar on the other. We'll get to the bulk of the section next time. For now, I'd like to focus on the opening miracle story. I do so because I think it's a very important story in Mark's chronology and his message. And two, because if our only reading of Mark's Gospel happens on Sunday mornings, we never get around to this particular story. It's just summarily skipped over. And yet I think it's important for us to hear it, both as it fits in Mark's Gospel, but also I think it has a great word for us as church. You remember last time we were on Mount Transfiguration. Jesus was transfigured, changed, transformed. God announces that this is my Son, the beloved, to put an end to all speculation as to who this Jesus is. The disciples want to hang out there, build tents, shelters. It's kind of cool up there with Moses and Elijah and Jesus. But Jesus takes them back down the mountain. And it's at the foot of the mountain that all hell breaks loose. There's a great commotion, a great crowd gathered. Jesus asks what's going on, and a man brings his son to him and says, "Here is my son. He is possessed by an evil spirit. He is unable to talk. It throws him on the ground. He writhes and foams at the mouth. I asked your disciples to heal him, but they couldn't do a thing for him." Jesus just shakes his head. "Oh, your unbelief. Can't you see anything? Don't you see what's going on?" Did I tell you we're ending this section with the healing of a blind man? Keep that in mind. Jesus says, "How long has this been going on with this boy?" "Since childhood. Sometimes the Spirit throws him into the fire, sometimes in the water, as though he's trying to destroy him. Do you think you can do anything for him, Jesus?" Do anything for him? Don't you get it? If you believe, if you see, all things are possible. The man says, "I believe. Oh Lord, help my unbelief." And with that, Jesus speaks to the unclean spirit and commands him to come out of the boy and to leave him forever. When he does, there is a great convulsing, and the boy is thrown to the ground and writhes until he lies still like a corpse. The crowd around him is hushed. They think he's dead. But Jesus reaches down and picks him up. Later, when they're in the house, alone with Jesus, the disciples ask him, "Why is it that we couldn't fix this boy?" Jesus says this kind of healing can only happen with prayer. That seems an odd statement. With prayer, you don't think the disciples prayed over this boy? I mean, that is what we as Christians do, isn't it? Well, what Jesus is talking about is they had become disconnected from God. For prayer is our connection, the way we communicate with God and God with us. They'd become so wrapped up in their own lives, in their own self-importance, that they couldn't do a thing. A powerful lesson for us in the church to keep our perspective and to keep that connection open. I would argue that one of the issues facing the church these days is that we've forgotten how to pray. We think it's all about us, and we forget whose church this truly is. We slide into survival when God is talking about thriving and healing. It is that inability to hear that renders us at times powerless, and one might even say meaningless. The Father's statement, "I believe, help my unbelief," is the theme of the church. At times we see clearly, and at times we can't see a thing. At times we firmly believe what we are about and what God is asking us to do. At other times we don't have a clue. John, in his gospel, deals with this subject in the figure of doubting Thomas at the end of his gospel. But for Mark, it's tucked here. This kind of schizophrenia of belief. Believing and then not believing. Jesus offers us now in the rest of this section some clues as to what gets in the way of our prayer, of our belief, our hearing, and our seeing. So pay attention. Don't forget to keep your eyes open.